Now, a pan-Nigerian movement, pro-national conference organization called PRONACO, initiated for the resolution of Nigeria's perennial constitutional challenges, has announced plans to reconvene its adjourned national conference.
Well, the members of the group say the move became necessary following a series of consultations with eminent leaders of thought and well-meaning political leaders in the country over restructuring and agitations for self-determination. Now, it is stated that PRONACO will interface with President Muhammadu Buhari, that's according to Olawale Okuni, to advise him on how to proceed on the contentious matter rather than allow it to degenerate into a major distraction in the country.
Now, the proposed confab is expected to be composed of delegates and elected representatives from territorial social movements, ethnic and nationality groups, political parties, labor centers, the private sector, youth and women groups, as well as governmental agencies, as the case may be. All right, that forms the background to what we're discussing now, as calls for restructuring from different parts of the country continue to gather momentum. Some Nigerians are calling for the adoption of the 1963 Constitution.
Indeed, well, those calling for a return to the 1963 Constitution are mostly from the Southwest. Now, notable amongst them is the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and former NADECO member, BC Akande, amongst others.
Yeah, Tinubu advocated the return to the regional system exemplified in the 1963 Constitution, stressing that when we unite, we build an existing maxim of one Nigeria. They say the various military interventions in the polity and politics of Nigeria starting from 1966 to 1999 completely destroyed the basic content of the agreement on the basis of which the founding fathers came together to form the federation.
And with all that already set out with us in the studio to talk about the call to revert to 1963 Constitution and, of course, the PRONACO move now to reconvene the national confab put on hold in 2007 is civil rights activist Olawale Okuni. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us on this wet Tuesday.
You're welcome. It's nice to see you. Right.
All right, before we start the discussion, first off, tell us why PRONACO is reconvening the national confab put on hold since 2007.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have witnessed some acrimony and conflagration in the polity, which is beginning to threaten the corporate existence and peace of our peoples. And so to that extent, it will be irresponsive on our part as leaders of the people if we do not intervene in this by creating a forum, a conflict management mechanism to deal with the issues being put on the front burner by the various diverse peoples of Nigeria. So it becomes incumbent on our leadership to reconvene the national conference that was adjourned under the leadership of the late Chief Anthony Enauru. Unfortunately, it's of blessed memory now, but there are still leaders who are willing to lead and promote peace through this conference.
We remember Professor Wole Soyinka was also at the helm of that movement at that time.
Very well.
All right, now let's look at the confab by PRONACO and all of their all the issues and ideas that were put forth, even though it was not conclusively done at the time. But putting that on one hand and comparing it with the 2014 national conference Nigeria had, is there any difference between what the two, what is coming from the two fronts for Nigeria?
The first thing to correct here is that PRONACO, some people didn't follow well. Okay. Truly, PRONACO actually concluded the process of giving to Nigeria a people's constitution, which was tagged 2007 People's Constitution draft. People's was presented on May 13 at the Sheraton Hotel by late Chief Anthony Enauru to the people of the draft People's Constitution. And the difference, there are differences really, because why the Pronaco Constitution recommended 18 regional states. The 2014 confab recommended additional states to operate within regional cooperation, 6 regional cooperation or cooperative states. That is the idea. I was also part of that. I was involved at that level, so I know the difference between the two. But Pronaco actually dealt with the federating and said, look, what will help us to manage the conflict, the conflict within the federation, is to have 18 autonomous federating states, you can call it region, and again, Pronaco actually went for that to recommend parliamentary system of government.
Instead of presidential.
Instead of president. It's a mixed presidential, which the 2014 tried to take some portion of the French system into Nigerian system, and then said rotation. So there are these differences, you know. But in this whole agitation for self-determination, etc., or contention, the critical thing is the federating unit. What will be the federating unit? It's a very critical issue in all the agitation. And so we have to really deal with it. The moment you are able to get the federating unit, and then what you call fiscal federalism right, you get all right.
But then, are you positive or hopeful, and of course I'm talking about members of Pronaco now, that they would get a positive response from the government of the day, knowing that when President Muhammadu Buhari, before he even got sworn in, he had a negative opinion about the 2014 confab, and he said that even at the time it was convened, ASU was on strike, so he wasn't even ready to look into it. And until now, the only time Nigerians heard about this government saying something about it was when the Senate asked the executive to send copies of the 2014 conference recommendations to it for perusal. So are you hopeful now that President Muhammadu Buhari would respond to any form of recommendations made by Pronaco after the convention?
Well, as a dialectician, I think that the mobilization going on will make him to look at it. But coincidentally, General Muhammadu Buhari was also part of Pronaco, attended the Pronaco conference here in Magodo, in company of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu in 2006, June 12 precisely. And he sent the Buhari organization as one of the delegates or delegation to that conference. So he really understands what we are talking about. And so to that extent, I am hopeful that if the agitation is really focused and cohesive, he will be made to look at the issues and then deal with it, because he's elected, in any case, to govern Nigerian citizens and not himself. So I know that if the forces that are promoting this issue of agitation are cohesive enough, and we make ourselves very clear, I mean, within the legal framework, and say, look, this is doable within the legal framework, I think it's reasonable to look at it. It will look, I am hopeful. So, I mean, what is expected to be done is what we are doing at the moment. Okay. Trying to mobilize the people and trying to articulate the issue in a way that the government will understand what we are saying, that this is not for disintegration, but this is to build national consensus and stability for Nigeria for once, and that the people want a people's constitution. I have always said it, that we do not have, and that is why Pronaco did what it did at that time, that Nigerians up till now do not have what they can call a constitution of their own. And that is a problem. You don't run a diverse setting like ours with a decree. You don't decree a constitution. So the people from the house must own their constitution to be able to defend it, to be able to pledge allegiance to it, Today, nobody pledged allegiance to the country. They say, because they were not part
of the process
of giving a constitution or constituting this place. Because it is by the constitution you constitute the Nigerian state and its territory. So the people must be really part of that process, and they must own it. In their nationalities, their social movement, professional group, they must own and say, look, we give unto ourselves this constitution. Not a constitution that tells a lie about itself. So the real problem, the real focus of all this agitation, I think, is the constitution. The real focus, restructuring, federalism, devolution, is about constitution. Because in any case, nobody is going to come to any constituent assembly and say that, take my position, either the north or south. No, you are not going, you are going to negotiate. You are going to dialogue. And so that will determine what will become our constitution. You dialogue into a political agreement and settlement which will be constitutionalized.
No, but in all of this, some will argue that the constitution is only a document. Even though, in principle, the constitution guides what people do. But when you see when government sometimes violates the constitution in a very pronounced way, and Nigerians are watching, sometimes they ask, is the issue really the constitution? Some people really argue whether that is where...
It is. That is because you don't have a constitution. You have never had a constitution. I put it to you as an authority. I have studied constitution. I have all the constitution in Nigeria. And I know we have always ended up without a constitution, with decree of colonial, except for the 1963 constitution that you spoke about here, or that will be talked about here, which has a semblance of constitution. But all other constitutional process with constitutional assembly has ended up being circumvented by the military high command at that time.
All right, so
the constituent assembly will recommend some provisions, and then when it comes out from the Armed Forces Ruling Council or the PRC, it is another thing. But in the case of 1999 constitution, there was even no thorough process. And General Absalami Abubakar made it clear, said they wanted to leave, that they will impress it on the incoming, which was that that to do a proper constituent assembly elected. Because the 1914 National Conference was appointive. It cannot pass for a constituent assembly, but it's a right step in the right direction. You can start with that and then proceed to a you must elect constituent to represent others, to give endorsement or mandate.
So constitutional amendments won't even do a good job since the constitution is not even for the people. Government,
no organ of government has the right to give the people, the owners of the constitution. That's not constitution. The National Assembly can never give you a constitution or turn a constitution that is done by a military government, into a it's not possible. The logic does not flow.
All right, so do you support the adoption, because there are growing voices now that Nigeria should revert to the 1963 constitution, or you just call for a totally new constitution to be drafted for the country?
Definitely, the 1963 constitution is taken as a proposal, just like the Pronaco People's Constitution. We also serve as a better proposal. Chifena did a very thorough work. A very, very, very coincidental. He was the one who moved the motion for the independence, and he sat at that old age with other leaders to work out a workable or a constitution for the country. And that was Pronaco People's Constitution 2007. You know, so I think the 1960s is a starting point. Yes, it's an option, it's a proposal. And I agree that it should be tabled at any forum, constituent assembly or whatever, with the Pronaco document. Those are the two that you have now, that you can really say belongs to the people.
All right. When it comes to discussing Nigeria and trying to profile way forward, some of the eminent personalities Pronaco is saying that involved people like Professor Ben Nwabueze, Paul Onongo, Chief Edwin Clark, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, and the others. Now, besides all of these people that certainly you can call to a place to sit down and then you engage. How about the Nigerian people, the average Nigerian people? How do you get them to buy into this issue by themselves, not just their leaders speaking on their behalf?
No, the leaders identify are just to play roles to facilitate the process. It is a people's conference, and that was what happened. The nationalities were represented. 200 nationalities were represented. The labor, the political parties, the youth movement, the women were all there. They will be there represented, elected. The only body that will come on advisory capacity as observers will only be governmental agencies, because they are government. They can only be there to advise on certain technical issues.
Don't you think the dynamics have changed now, and that if you ask members of different regions in the country now their opinion, for example, on restructuring or regionalism, the call for it now, it seems to be quite different. You have the loudest voice in the south, but when you go to the north, there are segmented regions that are saying that Nigeria is okay the way it is.
Yeah, that's the problem we have, and that is why we're trying to build or forge consensus before engaging government. You need to do that. The peoples of Nigeria, the diverse, must agree to some form of commonality in terms of, what they want. Today, even the music is changing in the north. The north said, yes, we are going to engage, we are going to negotiate, but we are going to discuss and agree among ourselves what we want. That process is on. It will end end of October. I mean, the North is sitting now, is talking. Government before was not going to do this, but through the party, government is now trudging this route.
Yeah, but there are some groups in the North, youth groups, I know of elders of Northern Elders Group as well, saying that they are not, in fact, they are warning members of the Southwest especially to be cautious of their moves for the call for regionalism and restructuring.
Yes, they are going to determine, they are going to...
That they shouldn't hold the country to ransom.
No, they are going to decide what they have said they want to engage. That's the latest. But they are going to, they said that they won't be rerouted into other people's agenda. Yes, they will have to come to table. The fact that they are ready to negotiate means that is a good development for this matter. So they are ready to, but they say they won't accept some fixation or something that has been, that is good for them. When we get to the table, you try as much as possible to convince the other person. It is negotiation, it is dialogue. It's not by force. So you will see superior logic. And under superior logic, you will bow. So that is it. If the North finds out that the evolution of power is superior or popular at that level, you have no choice than to take it. So what we are facilitating is a platform for dialogue, a platform for negotiation, so that we can continue to consolidate the unity of Nigeria through dialogue, so that every element within the country can own the country through the Constitution. The Constitution is not just a document. It is the spirit. And that is why Montesquieu said in 1746 that there is the spirit of the law. Esprit de law. The spirit of the law. It's a spirit, because your interest, your being, everything is put. It's not just a document. It is what determines your life and being and existence and your coexistence. So it is the key. If you just see it as a paper, I'm afraid one is going to enjoy himself. So the point is that the Constitution, in getting the people's constitution, there will be negotiation, popular negotiation, and you must be inclusive. You must get all the elements identified, all the ethnic nationalities, social group, territorial group. The North says they are territorial. For instance, there have been argument at some other level where Northern scholars have told me that there are territorial groups. Fine, let us have the territorial groups around the table. Let us have the ethnic nationality.
As far as there's an engagement.
Exactly.
As far as there's negotiation.
Let it be inclusive. Let it be transparent. Let it be accountable. Okay. Let it be popular
and
enough.
It's all for the prosperity of the country.
So that at the end of the day, the Nigerian people can say, oh, even where this constitution is faulty, we own up, we gave it unto ourselves.
Okay.
A constitution is not decreed. No government arm, the National Assembly or executive can give you a constitution.
Okay.
Because the constitution is given by the people to his government to say, we are not all going to be in government, but this is how I prescribe you run my affair and my life.
Okay. Let's bring in Foladele to give us a perspective of how Nigerians are reacting to all of these issues on social media. Fola, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Okay, so let's take a look at how Nigerians, well, some Nigerians really are reacting to the discussion on restructuring. Ms. Kazola says, Nigeria is not working at all. The question is not whether we must restructure. The question is why we must retain a dysfunctional system. Abdul Rashid says, Nigeria needs restructuring. Restructure now for true #federalism. Olajide Sunday says, if Satan is a presidential candidate in the coming elections, I will vote him in as much as he promises to restructure Nigeria from this mess. Ben Murray Bruce says, it seems less risky to maintain the status quo, but it's riskier to maintain it. The only constant in life is change. Nigeria must restructure. Samuel Yekwe says, my president, the only solution to building a stronger and more prosperous Nigeria is to restructure Nigeria back to 1963 Federal Constitution. And the last one here from Joe Ohai says, on reverting to 1963 Constitution and restructuring Nigeria, I stand. Do you stand with me? Okay. Well, we know you stand with him. All right. Wally, so really quickly, one of the statements that the national leader of APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, made was that we all lined up to call ourselves Nigeria without really first discussing what that means. What do you think about that statement?
Yes, I think that statement is very deep, very instructive, very profound, because we really don't think of our essence, our being, what we really are. Just call it maybe superficial to say, I'm a Nigerian. What does that entail? Are you part of Nigeria? Are you involved in making Nigeria what is it? Is your sovereign right with you, hasn't it been taken by government? So the point he has made is fundamental, that we should think of what we are and then see how we can coexist with others through dialogue. We must dialogue our unity, because Nigeria was created by colonial fiat. It was not what we decided. We living within this territory. It was foisted on us. It was not our volition to be Nigerians. So there we must think about, when we think about other, and then the constitution that we have today cannot be said to be the people's constitution. So when we think of that, then we will have tasks for ourselves of what is needed to be done to correct the anomaly, to make this place more prosperous for us as Nigerians.
All right, Fola, thank you so much.
Thank
you. All right, we're trying to round off now, we don't have all the time, but if we go back to how we started, all the constitution, the Clifford Constitution, the Richard Macpherson and Littleton Constitution, there was a build-up to a federal system. Every extra constitution that came, there was a build-up, something was added in and all of that. But at the end of things, after the independence and then the Republican and so on, when the military came, everything went dead the way it went. But when we were reviving the Republic, the Second Republic, for instance, was that where we got it wrong, where we should have made effort to see how we can build on what we're building before, in the kind of government, in the kind of federal system we're building and all of that?
Yeah, surely. Second Republic, I guess you mean that which was presided over by Alhaji Shehu Shagari. Yes. Yeah, when we're planning for that, yes, we tried to, through a constituent assembly, which had Chief Rotimi Williams, Nwabweze at that time, and the recommendation was fantastic. But when it got, because of the fixation with Murtala Muhammad at that time, that they wanted a stronger federation, a stronger federal government. So when the report or the recommendation of the Constituent Assembly was coming out from the ruling council, headed by General Olusegun, it gave power, so humongous power, and unitarized and turned the Nigerian Federation into a military command structure, Obian command. Where you have
which was started by Aguirre in the first place.
Oh yes, it was started, but then, I mean, that error shouldn't have been made with a constituent assembly of the people. The people had the opportunity under Aguirre. Yes, it was a military government. They wanted to run a military government easily. But with a constituent as preceding the 1999 Second Republic, they should have done something. But the military, and that's why I said you don't have a constitution. The moment an arm of government circumvent or edit or tinker with the People's Constitution or what came out of the People's Constituent Assembly, then it reduces it to a law. It reduces that constitution from being a constitution to a law by the fact of decree. Because when the government say we are giving you constitution, it's no longer the people.
But then you wonder why
so the
democratic governments didn't do anything after 1999. Exactly. Is it because they are benefiting? Some people are benefiting at the detriment of others?
They tried to do after September, but the fact remains that there were vested interests.
Exactly.
The Obasanjo's conference, for
that was
instance,
exactly the question.
was led with short-term agenda. So the people must really take ownership of this process.
Okay. Olawale Okuni, thank you so much for coming on the program and giving us insight into all of these ideas in here. We look forward to a newer Nigeria, a better Nigeria, and all Nigerians are watching. We wish you well in Pronaco.
Of course,
Thank you so much.
A developing topic, really. Thank you.